Hold on a second. I was hoping that was going to be a lot louder.
I was hoping you just throw up everywhere.
You remember that video of that guy from the film festival? He goes on the news, and the news anchors are like, "Oh, so you're having a film festival? What's that like?" And he's like, "Yeah, and we got this in their shorts," and he immediately just goes, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." He's just like he's trying to talk, and then he's just like.
You think he was hungover?
He's so nervous.
Or was he just nervous?
Maybe he was hungover. I think I was a goddamn mess. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry.
That girl was like, "You never had a chance with me in the first place." But like now, because she just no-sells the entire thing. There's this terrific video. It's like me and Lacey's favorite YouTube video of, it's like, it's not QVC. It's sort of positioned like it's framed kind of like QVC, but I think it's more like sort of an antique showcase type thing.
Sure.
And there's like this old guy who is showing off like a super old audio recording, and it's like one of those old cylindrical vinyl things. And,
yeah.
And he's showing it off, and I think it was like an original recording of like President Garfield and like Mark Twain or something weird like that.
Uh-huh.
And it was like one of the original, and they're on a super close up of him, and his old hands are just shivering.
Oh no.
And this thing just evaporates. He goes,
yeah, because it's 150 years old.
As is he. And it just like evaporates in his hand. And he goes, shit. Like he knows he has to cuss, but he's like, I'll draw the line at saying fuck, but I'm totally gonna say shit. And then like his young co-host or like the host of the show says, "Well, you know, that stuff will happen."
That's how he covers it.
Yeah. Well, that'll happen sometimes. I guess. And then he says, "I guess, are we done with this piece?" It's like,
that piece is done.
Obviously, I'm done with this piece. It's in like 100,000 pieces right now, you dumb shit. So anyways, welcome back to the Friendoville podcast, the last remnant of all things Friendoville. I have no idea if you keep up with what I do on this fucking channel.
Yeah, I saw you change the channel name from Friendoville to
Wrestle Juice.
Something else?
Wrestle Juice. Yeah.
I couldn't remember the juice part. For some reason, I thought it was Wrestle Jam.
That's good too.
Wrestle Jam.
That's probably a better name, but it's too late.
Is that better?
Now. Yeah, Wrestle Jam. That sounds cool.
I mean,
hey, welcome to Wrestle Jam. Ooh.
Wrestle Jam.
Wrestle Jam.
Jam the wrestle. Jam.
Well, if you and I ever start a wrestling channel, it'll be Wrestle Jam. We'll have that in the books.
Sure.
But yeah, no, I don't know. You know, Friendoville, it's a fine name and everything, but I'm like, you know, Jeff and I, we've got our own history. Maybe we'll rename this podcast into something else. So if there's any suggestions out there, or if you and I, you know, if we want to dig through our vast litany of in jokes, I'm sure we can find something cool. But you know, it's sort of a whatever thing. People they're along with us on this ride, and I figured today, I'm assuming you've seen the second episode of Loki.
I did, yeah.
We could do a brief, because, you know, a couple people in the comments been like, hey, do a weekly thing. And I don't want to make it like this is all we do here for the next 9 weeks or 6 weeks or however long the show runs. But I figured it'd be fun to talk about. I just have a list, and it's sort of good and bad.
You got some bad ones? Because I have some. What I have is I have a top 5 that I thought were a little bit more obscure, and then I have stuff that just I think should be on everybody's list, sort of.
Yeah, good. I have like a comprehensive list of movies and TV shows of just stuff that stood out to me that I know I've seen, that for good or bad. I wrote down. Sure. I mean, there's a lot of good. But there's some that's fun to talk about, and I just want to get your thoughts on it, because I don't have your thoughts.
I could talk about an element of the or a subgenre within time travel stuff that I dislike and I won't engage in. I'll talk about that.
Okay, cool. Okay, we'll get to that in a second. But first, that second episode of Loki, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fantastic. I could watch the characters of Mobius and Loki just talking.
Got a lot of chemistry, those guys. It's like
Oh
it's like a
man.
fun buddy thing going on. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's great.
Yeah. It's good stuff. There was one scene, one of the scenes that stood out to me was it was just whenever they were sitting down talking. And I think it was the first scene where they were sort of sitting there talking and they were going over the plan. And Loki was trying to reassure Mobius that he wasn't going to stab him in the back. And he was like, I've seen your entire existence.
Mm-hmm.
You've literally stabbed like 50 people in the back.
Yeah.
And Loki just says, well, I won't this time.
Yeah.
And the camera cuts to Owen Wilson and it looks like the most genuine laugh. And I wonder if, and it might be just a clever bit of direction, if they actually just captured an actual laugh of his, like maybe he cracked up during the scene and then just delivered that last line. And I love that, like, especially like Lacey, she'll always sort of sit there and point. She's like, that was a real laugh, wasn't it? Because, well, I forget what it is we've seen. In Ragnarok, I'm almost positive that there's parts in Ragnarok where the actors just sort of crack a little bit and he just keeps it in there because it's so natural and it works so well in the moment.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. It's like some of the funniest moments that you remember back in the day when I don't watch SNL anymore, but you watch SNL, like the classic SNL, like the 90s stuff, watching some of those guys get each other to break. Even you go back even further into like the Carol Burnett show days, stuff that like our parents were watching when we were kids, but like like Harvey Korman and those guys like Tim Conway and stuff and Burnett and Vicki Lawrence, all those people would be trying to get each other to break on stage while they're shooting the show, because not only is it enjoyable for them, but it'll make the audience laugh too.
Oh yeah.
So to try to elicit a sincere, and it's an extension of eliciting a sincere response from somebody that you're performing with. That's always going to be a great thing. So.
Yeah. But no, I thought it's funny because I saw, I don't know, there's a tweet somewhere. I'm not going to be able to credit it, but somebody made the observation that, the action in Loki is actually fairly, I don't know, pedestrian, but it's all just the conversational bits between the characters that like you just can't take your eyes off them. And honestly, just the general ideas of time travel, and then of course the Easter eggs trying to figure out what the hell's going on. You see all the various points where I guess it's Enchantress. Is that the name of the villain here? That's I think I understand that that's sort of the bad guy there at the end, the female Loki or whoever it's supposed to be.
No, I thought she had a different name.
Sylvie something or other, but I thought that was sort of.
If it's Enchantress, that's a different Marvel character, right? I thought it was just Sylvie.
So let's see, Enchantress Marvel. Let me take a look at this.
Pull out my Marvel Universe handbook
because I think so the second Enchantress is the young Sylvie Lushton, who was given great mystic powers by Loki when he created her as a tool for chaos. She models herself after the original Enchantress Amora. And I think that might be, they're like sort of taking a couple different, they might be creating
Amora,
a new character.
I think that the Sylvie character is a little bit newer, because the classic Enchantress, again, like you just said, is Amora, who was sort of like the evolved Valkyrie, right? Yeah.
So the Sylvie Lushton character first appearance was in 2009. And the thing is, like, the current MCU takes so much. It's funny because like the first Avengers arc basically takes a lot from Ultimate Avengers or the Ultimates. The Brian Michael Bendis, he first had like the Nick Fury that looks like Sam Jackson. And a lot of that is inspired from that. And so I've noticed that like so much of, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, from reading about it when we were doing research for the first Loki, and there was a lot of great comments in that, the last podcast that we did, sort of filling in a lot of the blanks or correcting some mistakes that we had. Apparently Marvel, and I had no idea this was the case, Marvel's on like the 9th iteration of their universe. And I had no idea that was the case. I thought they had the same universe up until like, I don't know, 10 years ago or something. And
you mean the comic book continuity?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I had no idea they had rebooted that many times.
Yeah.
But I know like the latest, like a lot of what the MCU pulls from is from more recent works, like WandaVision's part House of M and part something else. I forget what.
There's there's a little bit of like within a lot of the stuff in the MCU. There's a little bit of classic continuity that gets folded in because there's just old school like Vision, Scarlet Witch stuff that they put into WandaVision.
Yeah,
kind of interesting to see that kind of so.
But yeah, apparently this character's first appearance, or at least sort of, I guess maybe the general template of this character. First,
I knew that. I mean, the female Loki character is a newer character. They started doing that within the last couple of years. They had like a female Thor, and then they had like the great female Wolverine character that kind of adopts, and they kind of had her in that Old Man Logan movie, which is great. By the way.
Yeah. But yeah, no. And then, she's like dumping those like little time bombs, those reset charges, in a bunch of like the movies that we've seen. Like that one went to, I think Ragnarok, one went to like New York in 2012 or whenever the first one, Avengers was. So yeah. Do you have any fan theories to share with us?
No, not really. I'm just along for the ride at this point.
Yeah, that's all I do too. It's all I do. I'm not smart enough to figure that stuff out.
Well, again, this goes back to like when we were watching Lost and everybody had all these fan theories, and you start cooking up your own and stuff, and then you get to the end of it, and you're like, well, why did I put forth energy into that? It's just it can be fun sometimes, but I'm like,
it never pans out well. It's like it's like watching wrestling and trying to be like, oh yeah, it's fairly obvious, and we talked about this last time. It's fairly obvious that Mr. McMahon just sort of wakes up and is like, hey, it'd be great if we had this guy out there. And he has a match, and I'm like thinking to myself, oh man, this guy was, he was in PWG doing this, and you're putting together all these dots, and he could face this guy, and it's like, nah, man, Vince had no idea where he was before the WWE.
So like, what? Not to get too existentialist, but what? So, if there is a higher being to this universe that we're in right now, and the end of existence or the end of life is dovetails into another form of existence, and you get to have a hold court a little bit with this higher being. How disappointed will you be, or whatever the remnants of the idea of you is that's confronting this higher being? If it's just Vince McMahon and he's like, well, he's an old school guy. He's like a Belisario guy. He's just like, I just figured, you'd figure it out. I put these things in front of you. I thought you might like comic books or whatever, I don't know why you ate so much Del Taco, but that's on you, buddy.
It's like God. So tell me the Loch Ness Monster. Great big fucking lizard. Okay.
Yeah, I just figured it would be cool to be like an underwater lizard thing. I don't know.
It pops up.
We never really did anything with it, did we? Sorry.
What about the grassy knoll? That was just some dude. Yeah, Oswald totally killed JFK. That guy was a hell of a shot, wasn't he? That wasn't even me. That was just practice on his part. I didn't think he'd be able to pull it off, but that kid's head exploded, didn't it? Okay, God. Gee whiz.
He's so insensitive.
Oh, too soon? That's great, man. God is an old school TV writer. Old school
guy. I don't know what I was doing. I was hungover that day. Sorry.
It was hard to put it together. I made love one day, and that was cool. Got to see a bunch of people fuck after that. Gee whiz, man. You're crazy. God works in mysterious ways. Yeah, right. God loves booze. Anyways, so yeah, man, I thought it'd be fun to look at now that we're 13 minutes deep. I'll put this time code in here for people who are anxious to get to what the title of the episode is, which is something about time travel fiction in movies and TV. The top ranking, top 10, whatever you want to call it, the best, or at least the most notable in time travel. So please, fill me in on the subgenre of time travel that you're not even going to touch.
The subgenre of time travel stuff that I do not like and I will not engage in. I've seen some of these movies and episodes of certain TV shows that I just, it doesn't resound with me. Mm-hmm. It is a specific subgenre. It's time travel plus romance. And I'm just like, not into it. It's like stuff like The Time Traveler's Wife or Somewhere in Time, which is actually kind of good, especially that's a Christopher Reeve one.
Yeah.
Right? That's actually not bad. Or like Outlander. I'm just like, no, I'm not doing it. Listen, that's beyond the ceiling of my suspension of disbelief, because
Yeah.
I'm like I'm cool with like time travel being a thing.
Hmm.
Great in fiction. I think that's great. I'm like I'm on board there, and then I'm separately cool with romance, like functional romance
Hmm.
being a
Yeah.
thing,
Yeah,
because
sure.
romance and like love and relationships are hard enough to work out in and of themselves.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
When you start combining the two, I'm like, this is too much.
It's way too much.
These
Yeah.
these things like jumping around in time, and Keanu Reeves is going to a lake house and Sandra Bullock was there, and they start writing letters, and then they fall in love, but they're two or however many years they're apart in lake house or what. I'm just like, no,
Yeah.
this is fiction, and I can't. I'm off. I
Yeah.
can't. I can't believe in this stuff. It's silly.
No,
This is just pure
yeah,
silliness.
that's
So yeah.
good. I had Outlander on my list only because Lacey is obsessed with that show. We've
Yeah,
actually visited like a location where they filmed half an episode of Outlander when we were in
I tried to
Scotland.
get into that show, man, because I'm Scottish and I
Yeah.
love Scottish stuff. And they had like the last Highland Games, Scottish Cultural Festival that I went to a couple of years ago. They had a bunch of Outlander stuff.
Hmm.
They also had a bunch of Game of Thrones stuff, which is kind of weird because it's like, oh, you guys, they shoot this in like Iceland. Like, I don't know what
Hmm.
this is doing here. But the Outlander stuff, I was like, oh, cool. It's dudes wearing kilts and they're jumping around in time. I might be into
Hmm.
that. And I started
Hmm.
watching it. I was like, no, this is not my bag. I'm not
Yeah.
on board.
Yeah, I've seen so much of that show just by walking through the living room because
Yeah.
Lacey has watched it obsessively. And there are minor bits of like time travel nerdy stuff that I do like sort of pick up on, and I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
that's good because I mean at the end of the day, it's still Ronald Moore. It's Ronald D. Moore, and the dude is solid. You know, he Deep Space Nine, Battlestar Galactica,
Sure.
and then now, and it's funny because he does For All Mankind now.
Oh,
And
really?
Lacey will walk through, and she'll be like, "Oh, I can't watch this is so cringe." And I'm like, "This is your guy. Like, if
Yeah.
this wouldn't happen if it wasn't for Outlander. Like, this is the next thing that he's doing. Theoretically, it should be a little bit better. And there's always going to be like a little bit of like cheesiness to Ronald D. Moore stuff. That's sort of inherent. But yeah, Outlander. I can't sit and watch one because there's too much. Like, it's funny because you're harping on the romance, and I totally get that. For me, there's too much anxiety in the general idea of a lady time traveling back to a period when, like, if I were to go back to what is it, the 1700s, I would be dead within like a week.
Yeah.
I would be dead like almost instantly because I have no survival skills whatsoever.
Hmm.
I wouldn't know how not to instantly die. And like she's a doctor, so she has that going for her. So that's like a smart story move. It's like a smart plot device because it's like, oh, I got an infection. I can't go to Kaiser now. But
Hmm.
she's a doctor. She's like a walking Kaiser. So she can just like figure out, oh, this clump of mushroom right here is antibiotic. I just do that. I'm fine now, you know? So that just and then there's a lot of rape in that show too. And
Well,
I
I
can't do
mean,
that.
that's historically accurate to
Yeah,
most
everybody
of
was just
human existence.
yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much. So okay, Outlander's off the list. Have you seen? Let me ask you this: have you seen Dark? It's on Netflix.
No, that's on my list.
You would
is
fucking
it a
love
Is
it.
it Dutch?
Yeah.
Where is it from?
It's
Yeah,
Dutch.
Yeah,
You
I gotta
would
watch
love it. I've seen. I think they did 3 seasons, and I've seen. I think fully 2 or 1.5.
Okay.
And it's one of those that like the only reason I haven't binged the whole thing is because I watch it with subtitles because I like that experience. You know, in this case, quite a bit more than dubs.
Sure.
I'm pretty sure there is a dubbed version, but so often with shows, I'll put it on and I'll want to pay like 80% attention to it.
Yeah.
And with Dark, you have to pay complete attention to it because it's a really dense time travel story, and it's compelling, and the characters are all great. And
I didn't even realize that was a time travel story. I thought it was just
no, it is. You'd fucking
Interesting.
if I'm
Okay.
kind of upset now that I even brought that up, but yeah, because if you went into it naked, not knowing that it was a time travel story, your mind would be like, oh shit, I'm in for a ride right now. It is fantastic. It is completely like a small town super like complex characters, like really riveting performances, and all wrapped up in a really cool, interesting time travel series with like a little bit of like just that cool sort of science element to it that I know you'll dig.
Yeah.
I would definitely suggest you check out Dark. You'll fucking love
All
it.
right.
What's number 10? How many did you write down? How many did you put down?
I'll do the I'll do my top 5 semi-obscure ones, and then I
Okay.
got like a like kind of a laundry list of stuff that I think every was just on everybody's list. I'll
Yeah.
just rattle it off right now. It's stuff like Bill and Ted, obviously,
Yeah.
Back to the Future,
Yeah.
the Terminator, I mean T1 and T2, you know, Infinity War and Endgame,
Yeah.
Quantum Leap. I think people should check out if they want to look at a time travel TV show. And then a personal favorite, Hot Tub Time Machine.
Oh, that's great. That's stellar
Uh,
stuff. Yeah, it's hard to top Back to the Future
Yeah,
in terms of entertainment value.
for sure.
And
Also just watchability. We can just watch
Oh
those
my God,
movies
yeah.
over and over again.
They're
Like,
so
just,
quotable. Like you can just sit there. I mean, probably like you and I know we could sit there and just literally quote every line.
Yeah.
Like know every line in that, and especially the first one, but probably the second and third ones too, because like there's still, even the third one, which is like not as good as the others, it's still really good.
Yeah, but that's the Western one. There's a lot of fun stuff in there.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, I
I
love
dig
it.
that. I dig that, and the fact that he sticks to, you know, I love that the main point of reference for time travel within the universe of the MCU and Endgame is Back to the Future. You know,
Yeah.
Paul Rudd's like, yeah, and Robert Downey.
Well,
we could do this.
that is culturally the most recognizable time travel story. I
Mhm.
think. So it makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah,
But I think a
totally.
lot of the reason that that Feige wanted to do like a time heist movie and time travel stuff is because he's so very much inspired by Next Generation.
Mhm.
So you look at like the end, the wrap up of that of the Next Generation, but also like the Times Arrow episodes and like the time travel and stuff that they do throughout the Start the Next Generation is definitely clearly an influence on Endgame and Infinity War. So
Yeah, Times Arrow, the Mark Twain one. It's like it's again, it's sort of like it's kind of the Back to the Future of Next Generation, because like it's kind of corny, but it's also you can't not sit through it. It's so much fun.
it's super corny, but it's
Yeah.
delightful. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is.
Well, it's like going to like one of those old school country kitchen restaurants with all the kitschy shit on the walls, and they go, "Oh yeah, I got a wash bin and license plates and you know, stuffed deer head or whatever. We're gonna get chicken fried steak, and wow, this is great. You
Yeah.
know exactly what you're getting. It's very
Yeah.
satisfying.
It's like as close as you want to be to actually like living back then, because it'd probably be sheer
You don't wanna
misery
live
compared to what what it
yeah,
is
let's
now.
let's be clear. Nobody actually wants to time travel back to in history. That'd be awful.
What's the furthest back you'd be willing to time travel?
Late 90s?
Well, that'd be like early 90s.
Cool, man. Early 90s, yeah.
89, 90. That'd be like
Yeah,
as far back as I'd want to go.
yeah, that's about it.
It'd be
The
kind
90s
of
were
interesting.
cool, man.
It'd be kind of interesting maybe to check out like the early 80s, which is like if you look at TV back in the early 80s, it's kind of a cesspool. Like everything sort of in my mind, everything aesthetically looks like New York from back then smells, which apparently was pretty atrocious. It was like before Giuliani like cleaned things up and made it all touristy and stuff.
He didn't really clean things up, man. I've been to New York several times. It still smells like piss.
I've been there once in the past like 5 years, and it totally smelled like it was.
Well, the first time I went there was 2000, and I was walking down the street, and I was like, this whole city reeks of piss. And then I went again, like probably about maybe 9 years ago, something like that. It still smelled the same.
It's interesting because we went for like some 2K thing, I think, or something like that. Yeah, that's the only time we ever travel. And we pull in like in our cab or the car service or whatever. And it was, on one hand, it was cool because like our plane landed super late, so we got into like the wherever we were, the Manhattan. I don't know where we were, Lower West Side, East Side, something like that. We pull in and like, you know, it's cool because on one hand it's like at 2:30 in the morning, which in these parts obviously is dead because last calls at like 1:15. But there it's like thriving, like there's just people everywhere. But also, I'm pretty sure the next day was like garbage day or something, and so there's just bags,
huge garbage bags on the street. Yeah, they don't have like garbage cans.
Right.
There's literally just piles of garbage bags on the street before garbage day.
Yeah.
Just and I'm sure like literal mountains the size of SUVs made of garbage bags just sitting on the sidewalk and spilling into the street. It's insane.
It's like, I'm sure for like, because I know New Yorkers, and I'm sure it's it has its charm, and I'm sure that lifestyle is great for those for those people who came up in it and you're used to it and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if I can hack it.
I couldn't do it. I have no qualms about admitting that. Like, there's no way. I think New York City is a great place to visit.
Yeah.
And I've been around New York State a bit. I've been to upstate New York, which is lovely. It's very quiet and be like the Adirondacks is beautiful up there. But New York City, like Manhattan, I can visit for like 2-3 days before I start getting too anxious. And so as far as living there, I don't know no, I couldn't do it. Yeah, there's no way. I can't wrap my head around it.
Like whenever I've decided to stop going to San Francisco as well. Like San Francisco is just it's like it's a nightmare to drive to that place.
It's a lot.
It's that last time when I came out to your comedy show.
I don't know why you drove there, man. I won't drive in San Francisco. I just got lifts all the time.
What, like I was supposed to lift all the way out to San Francisco?
Yeah. Man.
It's like that's a big price. That's it's like 100 miles away.
That was a lot. Well, you could have driven to like
Emeryville or something,
Walnut or something.
Yeah.
Where's the furthest place you could get the BART at, and then taking the BART in? He could have done that.
I could have done that. Yeah, that's a possibility. Live and learn, I guess. What is on your more obscure? Because I'll give you some of my more Planet of the Apes. It's like, whoa, holy crap! That ended up being a time travel thing. Like, you don't know it the entire movie, but then it is.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. One that sort of went under the radar for oddly. I don't know if you ever watched. You ever watch Fringe?
I watched Fringe. Yeah, that was a good show.
Did that have time travel stuff in it?
Yeah.
I saw like the
I have
first
not seen
season.
it since like the 90s.
I've only seen the first season.
I watched it. There was time travel stuff. I remember that being a good show.
I watched it relatively recently, and it's a really cool show. It's funny because like there was an episode I watched like 2 years ago, and there was an episode where a lady gives birth to like a full-grown human, but he ends up like just being dead or something, and it's this really kind of gruesome scene. And Alabama, she's 6 now, she's like 4 at the time, comes in during the scene. And I'm like, Bama, you shouldn't be watching this. And she's like, show the giant baby part again. And she was obsessed with that scene. And so like, I'd have to go back, like we'd watch the entire episode and I'd be like, okay, the next one's coming on. She's like, no, come on. I want to watch the giant weird baby one again. And I'm like, all right, that's fine, because like I don't say no to my child.
That is kind of absurd. Maybe she just liked it comedically. Was that?
I think that's what it was. I think it was like it was so ridiculous. It was like that Saturday Night Live skit where Will Ferrell, shows up as the baby, in the hospital room. He's like, oh man, what a crazy birth that was.
But there's stuff that they'll put in kid shows sometimes. It's kind of horrific when you think about it. Like I was always scared of that giant sun baby they had in the Teletubbies. I'm like, what is that thing? That's creepy, man.
Yeah, that was weird.
But kids love it. So number one on my semi-obscure list of time travel things. Time travel. It's mostly movies. I got one TV show on there.
Mm-hmm.
Time Bandits. Terry Gilliam movie.
Terry Gilliam, he's great.
The first installment in what he called the trilogy of imagination that also included Brazil, which is great for you Loki heads, you Loki fans. If you haven't seen Terry Gilliam's Brazil, definitely watch that. And then concluded with The Adventures of Baron Munchausen, which is also a great movie. But Time Bandits is a fantastic film, kind of obscure, early 80s, rated PG. Honestly, not super. It's so like, you and I and like our college buddy Ewald used to talk about this movie because like Ewald and I specifically watched it when we were children, because kids' movies used to be a lot darker.
Yes.
Or like movies that like parents thought were like, oh, the kids are fine with that. It used to be a lot darker than they are these days. And Time Bandits is definitely dark. It's not like really bad. But if I had kids, I'm not sure that I would like sit my kid down in front of like Time Bandits and let the kid watch it. If it was like a 5 or 6 year old kid, I'd be like, I don't know about that.
You know, you'd be surprised at what
Yeah.
me and Lacey are fairly loose. Like, I just think back at my childhood, and it's like I would never the show that I really have drawn the line at with Bama is The Boys. That's the one
Oh, that's
show
very graphic, though.
I want. Like, there is just, heads exploding randomly.
Yeah.
Like, Homelander is just the most vile person to be on the TV
Mm-hmm.
screen. But beyond that, like, we don't really mind that much. Like, it's honestly,
Well, I mean,
like,
there's nothing like that in Time Bandits. It's actually it's an interesting story. It's I think a totally original story. But it starts with a young boy who kind of a Harry Potter situation, doesn't really get along with his parents or his caretakers, and then in the middle of the night, into his room comes a adventurous band of little people who are time travelers who've stolen this time map and are going around time and trying to complete an adventure. And they take this young boy along with them, and they jump around time. And it's a sort of a rollicking, fun, very surreal, absurd adventure. And I watched it many times when I was a kid and always loved it.
yeah. She was a huge fan of Labyrinth.
Labyrinth is a great one.
From like 3 years old.
Yeah.
She loved that movie. And there's, like back then, there was all sorts of crazy, sort of tailing that in terms of Terry Gilliam movies. 12 Monkeys is on my list.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Such a fun. I remember loving just like the aesthetic of that movie, the chaos of that movie.
Did you ever watch the TV show that they did after that?
No, I didn't.
Me neither. What about the French film that inspired it? Did you watch that?
No,
I think it was French. Yeah.
What movie? I didn't even. That just sounds vaguely familiar. But
Yeah, if I remember correctly, and I could be remembering it wrong, but I thought it was inspired by some European film. I thought it was a French.
That
film.
sounds familiar. Yeah, that sounds familiar. Just a terrific movie. What's
What's
next on your list?
Time Crimes, the Spanish movie.
Yeah.
Did you watch that?
I did.
Right?
You gave me the DVD and I watched it. I love it. It's like a.
I'm pretty sure you still have that DVD, by the way, because I looked for it today, and I do not.
I didn't know you were lending it to me. I thought it was mine.
That's fine. Just keep it. For those who are interested, by the way, I looked it up. It's you can watch it free on Tubi TV right now, which is the ad-supported video on demand. Or if you have your library card, you can watch it on Hoopla or Canopy for free at no ads.
It's
Anyways,
a
great Spanish film.
It's like a comedy of errors time travel movie.
Well, I like it. I think one of the reasons I always liked it is because a lot of time travel movies or stories, like one in particular that I got a little bit later to my list, the people that are doing the time travel are ones that figure it out. And so they're like ostensibly smart. They're like scientists or something like that, which I think is fine. In the context of a time travel story, to be like, oh, this guy is a genius. He's going to figure it out, and he's going to essentially, he will be his own test subject for his theories, and he'll time travel, suffer the consequences, etc. But this is like just a random dude in the Spanish countryside stumbles upon some scientist's house, and the scientist is like, oh, you want to time travel, and then that starts him on this like causality loop. That's kind of nightmarish, but also, like you say, a comedy of errors.
Yeah,
and it's just it's a really good movie. So.
Yeah, no, it is. It's a solid movie. I really, really enjoyed that one. It kind of reminded me of another time travel classic, Free Jack.
Oh, Free Jack, yeah. I was gonna bring that one up, by the way, because I thought that we discussed this already. Are you ribbing me a bit? I thought that we had the same experience and looking forward to that movie. When it was like when we saw the ads as kids, and then we went and saw it, and we were like, "What the hell is this?"
Yeah, no, I was too young to hate that movie.
Oh, you really loved it? I remember walking out because I'm a couple years older than you. I walked out of the theater and I was like, "Well, that was definitely a movie, I guess."
You're quite a bit more. You probably are still quite a bit more savvy than I was. I remember watching it, and I think as a kid, my thing is this, and I sort of again relate the same thing to wrestling. I like bad stuff. Like I can appreciate, number one, Emilio Estevez should never be an action hero. He shouldn't. He shouldn't even be a race car driver, which is what he was in this movie.
Yeah.
Mick Jagger, on the other hand,
Mick Jagger's great in that movie.
Is great in that
phenomenal,
movie.
Yeah.
He's phenomenal.
He should make more movies. He's so good.
He should, yeah. And he's like a futuristic, like sort of mercenary head of security for Anthony Hopkins, another classic actor. Yeah. Plays the heavy in this movie.
But there's also definitely parts like, and I haven't seen Free Jack in a while, but I bet dollars to donuts. There's parts where you watch that movie and it's just like Mick Jagger's just playing Mick Jagger.
Oh yeah, he totally.
He's just like,
is,
I don't, I would,
And it makes me wonder if the filmmakers maybe envisioned his character, because in the end he ends up helping. He's the bad guy that you can't, that you like, hate to love. Because he's Mick Jagger. And it makes me wonder if the filmmakers originally envisioned him as like a real bastard. Maybe he had a more like violent end, as opposed to he has a total face turn. Yeah. Like he ends up helping Emilio Estevez.
There's always a possibility, if not the probability, that Mick Jagger went into that and was like, listen, I'm not going to be a total bastard because I'm a Mick Jagger, give me a little positive spin at the end. You guys figure it out. I don't want to be a dick.
Or they saw the dailies and were like, man, we got to rewrite this ending because, like, I like this guy too much. Like, he's too charismatic. And they're like,
he's goddamn Mick Jagger.
He's Mick Jagger.
Too charismatic. Yeah.
He's like the front man of the Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's it.
Probably.
That's probably. Vasindek. That was his name. I don't know why I remember that.
How do you remember that?
I don't know. Because I remember, I was like, what a cool name, Vasindek.
It's a tragedy that they didn't have Free Jack action figures and Free Jack cereal. Wouldn't that be a great pie slice of nostalgia to delve into?
It'd be great, dude. They should have done like an animated series based on Free Jack, but like Mick Jagger, it's like now just the adventures of Vasindek. Yeah. And like fucking Mick Jagger does his own voice. Ooh, man. Time to go back to the 60s. So anyways, Free Jack was great and in a really terrible, awful.
Was that actually on your list, or did you just pull that out of nowhere?
It's on my list of shit I definitely want to talk about.
Okay. That's fair.
Another one that has to be on your list is Primer.
Primer. Yeah, that's literally the next movie on my list.
It's great in that it's as if somebody happened to have a camera around the least charismatic people on the planet. Yeah. Who were also time travelers. Yeah. And I still really don't know what the hell happens in the end, but it's fascinating anyways.
Yeah.
Like you have to piece so much together.
Yes, you do. I mean, you can go down K-holes online and sort of figure it out. People have different theories and illustrations and stuff like that. The interesting backstory of that movie is Shane Carruth, the writer, director, star, is like kind of like a mathematical genius. It's like went to college, like has a degree in high math, and had these ideas for time travel. Actually, interestingly, I don't want to tip my hat on probably another title that's on your list possibly, but he, I believe, was a consultant on a time travel consultant on Looper.
No shit.
I believe. I might be remembering that wrong, but I'm pretty sure he was.
Wow.
But Shane Carruth
surprising.
Had these ideas about time travel, and just wanted to make an independent film, and just did it and put it into the story, and then wrote it and directed it and starred in it. And like you say, he's a capable actor. I think the point of that movie is not to be charismatic or not to be interesting. It is just for him to be just a totally normal guy who figured out time travel or figured out a way to do a version of time travel. Which is essentially like putting himself in a stasis in a way.
It's the most. It's if time travel ever was a real thing. Yeah. This really approximates what it'd probably be like, because it's a couple of guys who are experimenting on something that is completely separate. They're not even trying to build a time travel machine. They're trying to do something else, and they end up stumbling upon time travel, which is a fascinating thing that actually happens in real life. So much of like technology and medicine and
innovation
science
is just like, well, we did this and this is what it's good for. Most of pharmaceutical advancements are like that. Well, we just saw this thing and we were trying, we were trying to make a new hair replacement drug, and we figured out that it cures cancer. You know, like
Or the other way, like, hey, we were trying to come up with, like, I think Viagra was originally like some sort of like heart disease pill or something, and then it's like, oh, it makes you erect.
yeah,
For a long time.
gives you boners, like,
Guaranteed to boner
like,
you.
oh, it's gonna give you a boner. That's what it says.
So let's go. I was trying to make a boner pill, and let's go time traveling now. But we'll take the boner pill with us.
We're gonna travel through time with boners.
But the fact that they don't come off as actors at all is what is the literal appeal.
It makes it more realistic. It seems
totally
like almost
does.
like a cinema verite thing.
Yeah,
Everybody in that movie feels so real because they very much are. But the time travel in that movie it seems so accessible intellectually, where it's just like they're not like they don't build a big machine to shoot through time or to warp space or anything. It's really just like almost like a photocopier where you as a biological organism go in, and it's a very confined space. You actually put it into a storage unit of all places.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
They're in a storage unit. They're in like essentially like a refrigerator in a storage unit, and they turn the thing on, and it just cycles through time for 6 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is when you're in there, you are essentially outside of time for 6 hours, and then cut to 6 hours later, you leave, but you're not leaving. You're actually leaving exactly when or exactly after you left. But the you that leaves after you left is the you that already traveled through that 6 hours of time, right?
It's something like
essentially
that.
It's like you're in there for 6 hours. You come out later. It is 6 hours later, and you see what happened in the stock market in the interceding 6 hours, and then you go back, and then you leave 6 hours before, because it's essentially it's sort of like made you a clone. But what happens, and that's a lot of what the theories and the illustrations are online, I think, is showing that what happens is you're essentially cloning yourself at different points in time, and because of how time works, one of the clones or one of the timelines essentially just has to die.
Yeah. It's
But it's a great low budget. It's a very fascinating and interesting movie to watch.
There is a really good illustration that I saw not that long ago of the time travel aspect of it. Let's see here. Yeah, here it is. Oh my God. Yeah, this is great. Okay, that just took me to Wikipedia. That's not what I wanted at all. But yeah, it's fairly so the original person on the undisturbed timeline decides to time travel. He activates a switch and leaves the area to avoid encountering his double. The machine. Hold on, let me get a bigger. Let's see. Open image in new tab. There we go. It didn't get any bigger. Anyways, yeah, it's a rad fucking movie. Go check it out. What's next on your list?
Another independent movie that I thought was really fun. Safety Not Guaranteed.
Oh, I never saw that. No, I heard about it though. It was good stuff.
Mark Duplass. And,
it was a Duplass movie. Okay.
Aubrey Plaza. No, Duplass just acted in it. The director actually went on to direct Jurassic World.
Trevor.
Hey, that guy.
Something. Yeah.
So it's actually, it's maybe not necessarily explicitly about time travel. It's more implicitly or it's sort of like the time travel in the movie working isn't the point. It's more about the relationships, but it's still a very fun movie, and I remember enjoying it thoroughly when I watched it.
Let's talk about one that you mentioned already, Looper.
Yeah, Looper's great film.
I'll be honest, like between that and Primer, those are probably the two that I appreciate the most on this list, because Looper is, I remember I went one day, I think I was just cleaning my office or I was rearranging my office, and I turned it on and I got nothing done in my office because it's so good. And it's like you get past, I remember the first time I saw it, I had kind of a hard time getting past Joseph Gordon-Levitt as young Bruce Willis because he did the makeup stuff, which I thought was a bold move. But then I watched it on repeat viewings. You get sucked into just the amazing ideas. It's great when somebody takes a convention like time travel and they just flip it all sorts of different ways into new and interesting ideas. And Looper does exactly that, and it takes it to a space that, you know, it's got a heavy film noir influence to it, and it's such a beautifully made movie. Ryan Johnson is just a really great film.
He's great.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan. I've been a big fan of Ryan Johnson's first movie I saw his, which I think was one of the first movies he made. That film, Brick.
I think that was his. I think it was the first feature.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and I've always loved that movie. And talk about a noir influence film, great film. But yeah, I remember we went and saw Looper together at the theater the first time, and that's a great time travel movie right there.
Yeah, it is absolutely terrific. What's next on your list?
That would be my only TV show, which is it's a mini series, but and it's on Hulu. It's 11/22/63. It's an adaptation of the Stephen King novel. By the way, I know that we both have this feeling about Mr. James Franco, where you're watching it, and a lot of times you're just like, that's just James Franco.
Yeah.
He's just doing James Franco. There's definitely parts in that show when I forgot that it was James Franco, or he was doing a good job playing a character, wrestling with certain things, because he the setup for that show is interesting. He's friends with an old guy who makes the best burger in town. He's a high school English teacher, I think Franco is, and he goes to the local burger joint that's been there since like the 50s or 60s. And he thinks they have the best burger ever. He's like, oh, how do you make such a great burger? And he's like, I'm not going to tell you my secrets. And then the old burger joint guy is like, finally, he's like, well, I'm going to die soon, so you need to know the closet and back is actually a time portal.
All right.
This is my favorite explanation for like time travel. It's not like somebody built a machine. It's just like, well, I just figured out one day if you walk into the closet, you come out in 1963.
Right. Yeah.
It's just like and Stephen King doesn't really do much time travel. I think it's one of the few things he did. I just love the zero effort and just being like, well, listen, all I need is his advice. I'm not going to like make a machine. You know, it doesn't need to be believable because it's not fucking believable.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's just as believable to say, Doc Brown built a DeLorean time machine is like, well, I guess this closet is actually a time portal.
Right. This hot tub is a time machine.
But he figures out that Franco, being this history teacher, figures out that this time portal dumps you out regardless of when you enter. It dumps you out in the same space adjacent to the burger stand. Mm-hmm. In 1963, a period of time before the JFK assassination. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And he, over time, is like, well, if I can just live in 63 for a couple of months, I can probably stop the JFK assassination.
Yeah.
And he tries to do that and is foiled every time. And then it starts getting into stuff about like the sort of unstoppable passage of time and things that have to happen in the context of time, which is interesting. You're seeing that some of that stuff right now on Loki with the sacred timeline kind of stuff. Yeah. That stuff in the context of that miniseries 11/22/63 was very sort of dark and ominous and very Stephen King-like, and I found it very satisfying. So
yeah, I liked when he actually, because at one point doesn't he actually succeed in stopping the assassination of JFK? Because what happens when there's the like he fucks up the timeline and there's like the Kennedy camps. Yeah. I thought isn't that what happened? Wasn't that the result of him succeeding or something?
I would have to go back and rewatch it, but I thought that every time that he got close to succeeding, it just ended up resetting.
Yeah, okay, maybe you're right. I forget, but no, I dig that show a lot. I mean, part of it is because James Franco is. I mean, I know he's got some extracurriculars that people have stumbled upon, but like as an actor, his charisma is off the charts. There's a reason why he's been able to have such a lengthy career and basically doing whatever he wants to do. Yeah. And he really does act as kind of a proxy for, it's like, man, this guy's going back in time. This is kind of maybe how I'd like to think I'd behave. You know, when like somebody's being like just sort of naturally racist because everybody was back then. Mm-hmm. He's like, fuck you, man. He punches a racist in the face. Great. It's very satisfying. It's like, it's what you think you'd like to do if you go back there. So no, I really dug that show. Did you ever see Russian Doll?
Yeah. Oh man, that was great.
That is such, and
I totally forgot about that one. That's such a great
it
show.
is such a great show. The showrunner of that, I think, is going to be doing one of the Star Wars shows
Oh,
that was
cool.
announced, which is awesome. And I read that they're going to do another season of Russian Doll, which I would imagine is just a completely different
I
story.
thought that I read that too, and I figured the only way to do it is just turn it into an anthology where you just sort of take the
Yeah,
same,
yeah,
possibly the same mechanic and map it over different characters or a
yeah.
different situation, which I'm on board with, by the
Oh,
way. Because yeah,
absolutely, yeah. It was such a tour de force for what's her name, Natasha Leone. Is
Natasha
it?
Leone.
Yeah, she is
Yeah.
phenomenal
Oh,
in
she's
it.
great.
Just absolutely great. That's on my list. Let me ask you this. There's two more that I want to talk about really quick. Did you ever actually watch Southland Tales?
Oh yeah, I saw that in the theater, man.
Oh, wow, you did.
Yeah,
What was your take on it?
I remember leaving the theater and being like, "What the fuck did I just watch?"
Yeah.
And then I remember watching it subsequently and being like, "Well, this was definitely a big swing."
It was
There's
yeah.
elements of that movie in retrospect that I really like. There's a lot of really crazy, absurdist stuff. I'm gonna be honest. I'm still not 100% sure that I knew exactly what he was going for with that movie, but
Yeah.
it's kind of breathtaking to watch just to see how big a swing a lot of the stuff is, and just be like, wow, this is wild, you know?
It's a mess of a movie,
Yeah.
but it's not an unfascinating one.
No, it
Um,
is it is incredibly fascinating,
yeah.
actually.
Yeah, and
Just the fact, first and foremost, like it's kind of amazing that anybody ever gets any movie made because it's insane, like the
yeah.
bureaucracy and like the hurdles and the blockades in the way of getting anything creative done in general, but like the size and scope of a movie, especially a movie like that, to get that, to push that through and to get it made is uh, just mind-boggling to me.
Yeah.
But to retain that direction and that sort of vision and to put that thing out there where you're just like people can look at it and be like, wow, what is this?
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
what I think probably still my reaction if I were to watch that movie right now.
There are elements of that movie that are and I think that's sort of the thing about Rich. I mean, another time travel movie that's really fantastic is Donnie Darko,
Donnie Darko,
obviously.
yeah.
But he's coming off that with obviously just all sorts of stroke and leeway, and he could just sort of write his own ticket. And he comes out with Southland Tales, which is like the least safe thing you could do.
Yeah.
And it was a very ambitious project because he had like a whole line of graphic novels that were supposed to coincide with its release.
Uh-huh.
And I think did to some degree. I don't know if it was to the degree that he had envisioned. I
Yeah.
think it was supposed to be like a 9-book cycle or something like that. And so it was this grand plan that he had. And then, we hear tales of people walking out at Cannes or whatever it was, or South by Southwest or whatever it was. But like some of the time travel elements I thought were really, really interesting. And that's, I think, going to be the legacy of Richard Kelly is that even in, I think he had a movie called The Box, which is based.
Oh yeah, that was really good. That was
Which
based
was,
on, I believe, a Richard Matheson short story, one of the
yeah,
old classic Twilight Zones.
right. Yeah. And I think, was there a Twilight Zone episode?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I like that. And it was, again, just some really, really cool ideas, even adapting somebody else's work,
Yeah.
of like original ideas of his own
Mhm.
that were really, really interesting. But I wonder if Richard Kelly just needed some guiding hand or something, or
Yeah.
somebody to rein him in, or I
Well,
don't
that
know
was
what.
my
I don't
thing, to
know.
be honest, because I remember when I saw Donnie Darko twice in the theater and watched like the DVD release several times, and I think that I didn't release the director's cut on DVD until like 5 years later or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I remember watching that director's cut for the first time and being like, "This is not as good," and it's not
Yeah.
super different than the theatrical, but there's stuff in there where you're just like, why is this here?"
Yeah.
Where the studio stepped in and just like and pulled back the reins a bit and made a better movie
Mm-hmm.
in a way that I think when he was making Southland Tale, because he had so much stroke, because he had so much heat coming off of Donnie Darko, nobody really did. And he was working with people that went on to become like The Rock. He was working with The Rock,
Mm-hmm.
but it was like The Rock before he's like this super mega star that he is and huge producer that he is right now. Where I feel like if he made that movie years later with The Rock would have been like, all right, let's like try to pull this a little bit tighter right
Yeah.
here, you know,
Yeah.
I think it suffers from being a little bit too grand in scope and in that context, a little bit too lacking in direction. But there's stuff in that movie that's fantastic. Even just the time travel ideas, and like, there's a lot of weird, absurd, surreal visions. There's a whole, I don't know why it's in there, but there's a TV commercial for an SUV that has SUVs having sexual intercourse. Like one SUV drives down the street and literally mounts the other SUV and starts having sex with it, and you're just like, wow.
And and one of the characters echoes that sentiment because he's sitting there. It's the guy who played Donnie Darko's dad in Donnie Darko, and he's sitting there eating.
Holmes Osborne, great actor.
Yeah, and there's that presentation. He's like, "Those cars fucking."
Yeah, so great.
Yeah. It's really terrific stuff. I wonder if he had the temperament, the wherewithal, the desire to work on something like an MCU project where obviously you're reined in big time.
Yeah.
But some people flourish, like Taika Waititi, for example.
Sure.
And some people, like I think Edgar Wright was originally supposed to do Ant-Man, and he was like, I can't make movies like this. It's not going to work for me. I wonder if somebody like that with so much to offer could be sort of reined in, or would be willing to have those kind of restrictions and still allow his vision to come out, if we'd be getting, more masterpieces. I don't know, because you're right. The theatrical version of Donnie Darko under the studio supervision was a fantastic movie, and there weren't that many alterations to the director's cut, but it did make it a much lesser movie. It's interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's see here. And then the last one that we can talk about briefly was Voyagers.
Yeah.
The 1980 something show.
Yeah, early 80s. Yeah. Boy, I forgot about that one. That was who was the star that
Phineas Boggs?
Yeah, but who was the actor that played him?
Phineas Boggs.
I thought that was a character's name.
I think it was.
Man, you don't know the actor's name. It was John Eric Hexum, right? Is that
yes. Right? Oh my God. Good memory. Wow.
Yeah. He tragically died. He on set. He pulled out a gun and was like a young Hollywood actor. It just hadn't been around the block enough to know that, like, yeah, sure, even if a gun is loaded with blanks, you still don't point it directly at your person and fire, because a blank still has something in it.
Yeah,
it's just not a metal bullet.
Right.
It's like clay or something. And that clay fired and lodged into. I thought he shot himself in the chest, or it might have been the head. I can't remember.
I don't remember. I think it was it was the head, because it was like a concussion that he.
Oh, that's it. Yeah. So he shot a clay round into his head, got a concussion, and died. It's just tragic.
Oh my God.
Because that was a very good show. The aesthetic in that show was great. They had a great time travel device. It was like a cool 1800s pocket watch kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right.
And every time it would pop open, you're like, "Oh, that's cool."
Yeah,
That's cool.
Yeah, I wonder how far that show could have gone. Because I think it probably got canceled because of his death.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I thought they only made it into the second season, right?
Probably.
It was pretty early on.
And he's like, "Hey, things are going great for me. Let me do this now." Poor bastard. Anyways, on that note, thanks everybody for tuning in. We appreciate it. And we'll be back next week with another episode of the Friendoville podcast, soon to be renamed to, I don't know, figure it out.
Wrestle Jam.
Friend Jam.